Ignacio. I'm from Argentina originally. I've been working for Rhizobactor for about almost 5 years now. I was in charge of our operations, of the Rhizobactor operations in Africa and India. Now recently, and living in South Africa. Now recently moved to Spain, and I'm gonna still be involved in the African business on our side. It's a symbiotic relationship that happens naturally in nature between two groups of organisms: legumes, that are plants, and rhizobiums, that are bacteria. Yes? That relationship is symbiotic because the rhizobiums fix nitrogen that they get from the air. It's like, do you know how much nitrogen the air that we are breathing has? More.
78.
Well done, he has been studying. Yeah, it's between 78 to 82, and in general it's said that it's 80%. So 80% of the air that we are breathing right now is nitrogen. But the plants cannot take it in the way it is, because it's 2 atoms of nitrogen that are binded with 3 links, and the plants cannot take it. Only the ways that the plant can take it are on these chemical forms. So the rhizobium infects the plant, creates some nodules in the roots, that those are the structures where the relationship between the plant and the rhizobium takes place, and fix nitrogen to the plant. In return, the plant provides carbohydrates or energy to the bacteria. This is a process that it's energetically costly for the plant, right? So that's how it takes place. With this relationship, it's said, and it depends on the environment, the yield, the performance of the crop, and the nutritional or the general nourishment of that crop, that between 50 to 80% of legume requirements when it comes to nitrogen can be supplied by rhizobiums. And that's pretty important, because in that case we don't have to fertilize our soybeans with external sources of nitrogen. And that's where it comes here. Nodules do not grow from fertilizers. If we apply nitrogen fertilizers, what we are doing is making our rhizobiums or nodules lazy. So, being that said, I said that 50 to 80% comes from the nodules, or the nitrogen can be supplied by the nodules, and that there's a very high relationship. Actually, it's not relationship, it's a correlation, because it has been scientifically proved between the content of nitrogen and yield. The highest content of nitrogen that we have in the crop, the highest yields that we can get. And this has been proved statistically and scientifically. And then on the other side, the other thing is that it's quite important that these relationships that happen in nature are crop specific. Yes? So is specific bacteria can infect effectively specific crops. Let's say legumes that we have that we can grow out in the field are chickpeas, soybeans, groundnuts, beans. Each of those crops has a specific product with a specific species of bacteria. So, and this is the reason why we are here, because of biological nitrogen fixation. And to do so and to maximize it, we are bringing, jointly with Syngenta, to the market the next generation of inoculants to the Zambian market. Yes, Atuva, it's the inoculant that you're gonna start using from now on, in combination with Apron Plus beans, to have not only healthy soybeans, but also well-nourished soybeans and crops. And it's a product that is liquid-based, that is formulated with osmo protection technology, that is a technology that throughout the fermentation process we subject the bacteria to temperature and chemical stresses, so the bacteria, that is the active ingredient that we are setting, can grow a thicker cell wall. And what that means for the bacteria, having a thicker cell wall is like having a thicker skin for us. When we grow up, when we become a little tougher with life, we become more tolerant, we become more resistant, not only to environmental stresses, but also to chemical. And not only throughout the span life when we have the bacteria on a packaging, on a bladder, but also when we are applying those bacteria to the seed. And today there was a question here about compatibility. And thank you, Wayne, because you led it to me. There are two things. This product is compatible with Apron Plus beans because Apron Plus beans has very good quality of adjuvants on its formulation that are safe to the bacteria. On the other side, because of this osmoprotection technology, these specific bacteria are more tolerant to those stresses. So we can recommend the use together and to be applied them together on the seed, and to recommend that this is quite important, up to 7 days of pre-treatment time. And what does it mean? It's not what we recommend to treat the seed and wait 7 days before planting, but if you want to have more flexibility in terms of the operations and be more efficient during the sowing season, you can treat all your seed together and plant it within the following 7 days.
Really?
Really.
Oh.
That's why they are bringing these products to the market.
You answer a lot of questions.
So, that is one of the advantages that we have, just one. The other one is that it's a liquid formulation. So it's really easy to apply and to use. And it's ready to be used. And the idea is that with this, and in combination with Apron Plus beans, we want to maximize the biological natural fixation and therefore yields. We are working on two packaging options. One is more oriented to commercial farmers. That is the 2-liter bladder to treat 1,000 kilos of seed, or a metric ton. And the other one is more oriented to small holder farmers on 50 mils to treat 25 kilos of seed. So again, the rate, as we were saying today, is 2 liters every ton of seed. And now to show you some results. I know something funny happened here, but it's okay. We have different situations when it comes to soybeans, and it depends on the response that we can have to rhizobiums. One is, if there's no history of soybeans in a field, or very little history of soybeans, usually the response that we have is in the range of 30%. Why? Because there are no rhizobiums in the soil. So we have to bring them and import them to the soil. In the cases, and this happens a lot in many African countries where we are bringing these technologies, or where they have been doing soybeans but not using inoculants at all. I understand that it's not the situation that you have. So in those cases, what we see, and these are, I know something funny happened there, but anyway, in those cases, what we see when you have monocrop of soybean year after year and for longer than 5 years, and this has been statistically supported by 258 trials all over the world, is that we can have roughly 5% yield increase. But this is with monocrop of soybeans. If you have soybeans every other year, every 2 years, and so on, it's a different situation. And it could be more in the range of 10%. And why this is, I'm going to go back to this. And why do you think that this happens? Or in some venues, the question, in some forums, the question is like, what do we do? Do we have to inoculate every single year? And the answer is yes. And the reason is because of this, that it could be higher, depending on the environments and the soils that you have. And then on the other side is because what we are doing with inoculants and with Atuva, with the atuvation, that you haven't told me not even once, so you are a little bit sleepy. With the atuvation, what we are doing is we are taking a very high load of bacteria to the seed. Yes? Those bacteria have been selected for the high efficiency to fix biological nitrogen fixation. When that seed is on the ground or in the soil, gonna germinate and gonna infect. That's the technical word. It sounds horrible because infections and bacteria have usually negative connotation, but those are the technical words. It's gonna infect the root and gonna create nodules in the primary root, where we have that very close relationship, right? Those nodules in the primary root that are like the ones that we have here are 10 times more effective than the ones that are in the secondary roots or in secondary roots. So that's why it's so important to inoculate every single year. So we can put in touch in very close relationship that bacteria with the seed and with the primary root. Is that okay? Then on the other side, if we have what we call I don't get the right word in English nowadays, but instant or natural inoculation from the soil, with those bacteria that we have in the soil, remember what I told you about these bacteria, what happens with the plant? They are symbiotic and they are used to getting the energy from the plant. If they are living freely in the soil, they become saprophytic, right? So they have to provide their own sources of food and energy. In those cases, they start expressing some other genes, and they reduce and depress the nodulation factor genes and the biological nitrogen fixation genes. So those bacteria that are going to be becoming wild in the soil going to be less effective when it comes to biological nitrogen fixation and infection. Storage. Most of the inoculants that we have in the market, even if they are solid or liquid based, are supposed to be stored in cold rooms or cold conditions, right?
Yes.
It's not the case for this one. We can store them room temperature, below 25 degrees, the same thing as for the seed. And then for the other side, on the other side, sorry, I should start speaking Spanish. On the other side is the span life of this product is of 2 seasons, not 1. Remember that I told you that this is manufactured with osmolar protection technology. This liquid that we are selling is with the strengthened bacteria, high concentration of bacteria. It's pure. It doesn't have any contaminants on it. Right? Yeah. So that, and the other thing that I didn't say, and thank you very much, now you remind me. And it comes, as I told you, in 50 mils and 2 liters, bladders or sachets. Yeah? What's the difference with the main products that you have, that we have in the market? It's not just here. If they are liquid, they come in bottles, right? And if they are solid, usually they are contaminated, because having a pure pit is extremely hard and expensive. So the inoculants that come in bottles, that are liquid and come in bottles, what it happens, these bacteria are aerobic, and there's no oxygen or not gas exchange between the bottle. So what we do, we pack it in low density polymer or polyethylene, bladders or sachets that allow the gas exchange with the media, with the outside media. That, in combination with the osmolar protection technology, give us a longer span life. In this case, we have Atuva. This is competitor. It's a company, it's a German company. They have pretty good inoculants, but you can see the difference. And these pictures were taken in South Africa some years ago in Bethlehem. If you know the region, in Bethlehem region, it was like 5 years ago. Atuva, competitor 1, it's a German company. Competitor 2, it's a South African company. So here we may have inoculation, atubation. Yeah? And that's what you want to have in your fields.
Yes.
So again, what do we have? Inoculation, and there you go. There you go, and thank you very much for that. So that's it. For me, it was an honor coming here, being here, having these discussions. We're gonna be around. We can chat anytime. You also have my details. The guys have my details. They are fully trained. They know everything. And you have to be sure on the bundle and the combination of products that you are using. These are products that have been broadly used and recommended all over the world together.